Hello everyone and welcome to This Year in Stupid Video Game Edition, where I did my best in order to find you some of the most interesting articles which came out in the video gaming world last year. I believe that the first article illustrates what video game journalists actually are in current year. They are nothing but an extension of the PR arm of corporations. You see, a company would not be able to use its PR team in order to tell you to lower your expectations as a consumer. But a video game journalist can. And usually there is an incestuous relationship between video game journalists and corporations. It's not necessarily tied to finances or money. It's simply that if you talk good about a game, if you promote their game, they might give you early access. They might give you nice perks. They might wine and dine you. So there is an incentive for journalists to talk good about major corporations and their products. And here you have the example. Stop complaining about Mass Effect Andromeda. Once you stop comparing it to the original trilogy, it's actually pretty good. You will never find this opinion illustrated on any forum or any Discord server where actual gamers gather. This is only an opinion which can come from a mainstream publication that is doing nothing but PR to a major corporation as they are gearing up to release a new product. So the message is clear. Lower your expectations, stop complaining, just consume product. The second article illustrates how video game journalists don't always play the games that they criticize. They just have certain knee-jerk reactions and respond predictably to certain triggers. For example, when Resident Evil came out, you had a character by the name of Duke, and this character acts as a merchant throughout the game.
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Winters.
How do you know my name?
Anyone who is anyone has heard of the likes of you. A hero searching for his daughter.
The Duke ended up being a mysterious character in the adventure, but also one of the most beloved characters in that game, second only to Lady Dimitrescu. In other words, everyone that played this game enjoyed the character of Duke and was very fond of them. Everyone except the journalists at The Gamer, who considered that the Duke is either a villain or a fraudster, none of which applies to this character. In other words, they haven't even played the game, but they reacted predictably to a stimuli and regurgitated some ideological nonsense, trying to convince people that the developers of the game are inherently evil. That somehow, if you happen to be fat in real life, these developers are going to make life harder for you by releasing this game which normalizes prejudice against chubby people, something that the game definitely doesn't do, and anyone who played it for more than an hour knows that this is not the case. Next up, we have Kotaku simping for China. It is not really a big surprise considering how all of these journalists would love to have the power to reorganize society and to impose their will upon their readers. Last year, China decided that they want to restrict the amount of time kids spend playing video games. And while there have been authoritarians both on the left and the right here in the West, which agree with such a decision, I personally find it unpalatable. Not because I don't think video game addiction is a problem, or that I think kids spending way too many hours of their life in front of video games is counterproductive, but because I think it's the job of the families and the parents to start parenting. I think the parents are the only people that should have a say in how children spend their free time, and definitely not the government. I do not think that people you don't know, you don't see, and you never interact with in your life have the capability of educating your child better than you. So this is why I personally disagreed with China's decision, even though it's not surprising considering the fact that China is an authoritarian government. But what was surprising, however, is to see Kotaku using one of their American Chinese journalists to explain and lecture to people while China restricting access to video games is actually a good thing. And in this, she explains that, well, it's not actually the government that is doing the censorship, it's an arm of the government that does the censorship. In other words, this is completely fine and completely okay. You see, it's not the government censoring, they just hire people to censor it on their behalf. This article was jaw-dropping to me when I read it the first time. I believe I even made a video about it on my channel. And it's not surprising that the next step that we witnessed from this was China banning Steam. Something that other journalists had said took them completely by surprise. Oh, they never expected this, did they? So it's kind of funny that a publication which relies on gamers exclusively to read their political nonsense is cheering and is happy when one of the biggest nations in the world is leading the charge on banning video games. In other words, banning the exact thing which is helping them have food on their table. Now, I would like to also talk a little bit about climate change, because I think it's going to be an important topic coming up in the next couple of years. And this goes a little bit outside of the realm of gaming per se. But you see, there are many game developers who either make games or have hot takes on Twitter praising people who are fighting against climate change while shaming people who are evil right-wingers and don't want the government to tax them more. The problem with this line of thinking is that if you're a video game developer, you need to take a deep thought whether or not this is going to benefit you. Because if you really want people to fight against climate change, then your industry has to go. Your industry is polluting, as The Verge likes to point out. And your industry is definitely not essential. So why on earth are you championing against your own business? And if you're serious about it, if you're a game developer that genuinely thinks that people should pollute less, why aren't you shutting down your industry? Why aren't you shutting down your business? Because you are hurting Mother Gaia and you know it. It's a lot less evil for someone to hurt Mother Gaia and not realize it than for a person to do it while knowing the harms that they are causing. In other words, The Verge itself is a publication which is causing carbon emissions, and they are not an essential business. People can live just fine without The Verge. And I hope that gamers are going to call these companies out on it whenever they do it. You should also call Hollywood out on it. Like when they made the movie Don't Look Up, which apparently managed to flop, so they polluted for absolutely no reason. Movies pollute. Video games pollute. You know what else pollutes? Gaming PCs. You don't really need a gaming PC in order to play video games. You can experience them just as fine on 180p or even 720p and pollute a little bit less. I'm not saying you shouldn't play video games at all, but if you're a person inclined to have a green ideology, there is absolutely no reason why you should have a powerhouse of a gaming PC. These are uncomfortable truths that I know some of you don't like to hear, but if you think about it, everything that I'm saying is logically correct. So you should call these people out. They should not be able to continue the conversation about the fact that, oh, this is so great because we now have more games that are raising awareness. The awareness has been raised, okay? Greta Thunberg has done a great job at raising the awareness. There needs to be no more awareness raised. Now, the only thing that needs to be done is action. So there's just two types of people left. The people who genuinely care about the environment and they're going to do the right thing. And those people are definitely not going to keep polluting. So The Verge, I'm sorry, you're not doing the right thing. And then there are the people who don't want to do the right thing, who want to keep polluting. And in order to be allowed to keep polluting, they have to pretend that they are essential in order to solve the problem. You're not essential in order to solve the problem. You are part of the problem. And while we're on the subject of the problem, Kotaku also released a very interesting article. And by the way, it's not that I have something personal with Kotaku. or that I have went on their website more than on other websites. No, it's just that they did release some of the dumbest mistakes last year. They are the ones that would win the medal. NYPD game truck wants kids to forget cops are bastards. Yes, Mario Kart. So, a company from Japan making video games with Italian plumbers riding carts are trying to normalize police brutality in the United States, according to Kotaku. Now, here would be a smart idea. I know that journalists, especially video game journalists, are incredibly well versed into how proper police work needs to be done. I mean, they just couldn't stop lecturing 2 years ago and last year about how proper police work needs to happen. There were articles after articles after articles criticizing and putting the police under a microscope. So here's an idea. In order to betterment ourselves as a society, I suppose that the politicians should pass a legislation which would draft every single journalist into the police force. Because only then we would have no more police brutality and we would have a progressive society where police do their job properly. Because these journalists are so well informed when it comes to proper police activity that it would be a harm for society not to benefit from their knowledge and their expertise. So, just like in Israel, you have mandatory military service for civilians, I propose that in the United States, police officers should be comprised of drafted video game journalists. So if you're a video game journalist, you have to serve 1 year in the police force. Mandatory. It's kind of like, now you might say, hold on a little bit, V. That's kind of authoritarian. What are you talking about? How can you say that's fascism? Well, first of all, in Germany, they drafted, all but in name, medical residents in the first year of the pandemic. It was very difficult for a doctor to quit in Germany if you look at the legislation that they passed. No one called Germany fascist, by the way. And secondly, if you can lock people up in their homes, declare their business non-essential, and fire people, I'm pretty sure you can also do this. Why not? If you can do that, why couldn't you do this? Every single journalist, 1 year in the police force. You know, they can also bypass it, like don't become a video game journalist then. I mean, it's not an essential profession, right? You don't have to, you have a choice. You can choose not to be a video game journalist. Can happen at any time, right? But if you want to, your country needs you. You know, you would even have people thanking you for your service. Every time you would go into a minority neighborhood, minorities would thank you for your service because your expertise on police matters is something that society desperately needs. And we need to see you in action so future police officers, future generations can learn a lot from your behavior. I'm willing to bet you're going to see statues of Kotaku journalists in every single police station because that is how great their police work is going to be, given just how much knowledge they have about understanding how communities function. And they understand the soul of every neighborhood. I mean, when you look at it, they don't seem to understand video games anyway. Not like they understand policing, but not only that, there's so many video games journalists out there, and there's so few police officers. And the police officers are hiring right now. Like a lot of districts, they require more police officers, so they're hiring. But going back to why they don't understand video games, look at this article. I hope the next Tomb Raider isn't about raiding tombs. This is something that The Onion could have written. But no, it's written by a quote-unquote serious publication. I gotta give it to them. It's not Kotaku. Like, Kotaku, congratulations, you didn't get this one. They're probably wiping the sweat from their foreheads like, phew, at least we didn't write this. Like, don't worry, you wrote other garbage. We're going to go to that in a bit. But what I love about it is that, you know, like, they're trying to make some argument that you can have a Tomb Raider without tombs and it can still be funny, and they talk about how the tombs were optional in the previous games. Yes and no. I mean, in the main story, you still go to tombs. The beginning of Tomb Raider 2, you're in a tomb. Tomb Raider 3 with the Aztecs. You go to tombs in the main story. But why would you want to do that? Like, if it's in the title, it's Tomb Raider. Like, it's literally the title. What do you want the game to be about? And instead of like saying that, oh my god, like tombs are so hard and they had intellectual puzzles, and I'm a video game journalist, I shouldn't do intellectual puzzles, I should do police work instead. Look, if that's the case, why not just try to make the tombs more fun? Like, why not get the company to invest resources in order to figure out how to make the tomb raiding more fun in the game called Tomb Raider? Again, what do you want the game to be about? Hating on men is the answer. Yes, men are evil. Which is why, by the way, I identify as a woman now. So number one, I can ban and punish and inflict my will upon anyone that disagrees with me. And I have the terms of service on my side, motherfucker. I have the big bazooka. The TOS is behind me. Come on. Misgender me, I dare. But I still can't believe it's 2022 and Kotaku is still having the rhetoric from 6 years ago. It is so bizarre. Like, who on earth still reads this? Like, I already read this article a million times. There's absolutely nothing you can add here that would blow my mind. Especially when you look at video games and they are very diverse, aren't they? I mean, my wife plays Candy Crush, but you don't see Kotaku criticizing Candy Crush. No, they only criticize the games that are predominantly played by men who don't identify as a woman yet. I don't know why you guys aren't getting aboard. Like, this is the new meta, okay? The patch is in, identify as a woman, and then Kotaku can't insult you anymore. Like, they will remain with no articles. It would be a blank site because there would be no more men that they can pick on. So like, literally, they would actually have to play the video games in order to write some competent articles for a change, rather than writing this garbage. Like, what are you complaining about? There's no men. Like, who's playing? Like, there's no men playing video games. Everyone playing video games is a woman. You're a man. Oh, you assume, motherfucker. Oh my god, terms of service. You know, harassment. I would write letters to their employers. Like, what do you mean? They misgendered me. Do you know what they did? They did name me. My god. Oh, Dios mío. So, yeah, that's what people should do if you want to see these articles disappear. And it would actually improve Kotaku. Like, this is for their benefit, by the way. Like, they would actually have to either go into police work, or they are going to have to play the video game so that they can write some competent criticism about the video games. And finally, of course, you know, like, they can't help themselves. No, like, I'm telling you, they really want to be police officers. This is a cry for help, is what it is. Joe Biden, make it happen. Sign a mandate making it so that every single video game journalist has to serve 1 year in the police. Every single one of them. And after that, they get a rank. You know, they can go all the way up to lieutenant. And when society needs them, when the Batman signal is in the sky, you mobilize the video game journalists back into the police force so that they can lower the crime level. That's my opinion on how a good progressive society should be done. And I want to thank Polygon and I want to thank Kotaku for opening my eyes to this untapped resource, this untapped power that society has. Let me know what you guys think, though. Hopefully you enjoyed this segment, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.